After the Gamergate controversy, in which a cabal of cringy commies in the games journalism field effectively colluded to cancel gamers as a going concern and got caught red-handed and red-flagged while doing so, it was clear the video game industry, which had been largely left unmolested by Marxist ideo-politicos to that point, I guess I have a minor moral and ethical quibble with the concept of jamming a pair of scissors into the base of a baby's brainstem and sucking the skull jelly out with a straw like a human pina colada, persnickety sort that I am. Point being, I'm about as anti-abortion as your time ridding yourself of a chronic case of Hep C than Donald fucking Trump. If that CNN town hall were any more of a trap, it'd be shaking its ass in front of preschoolers on Pride Day. But Trump turned it into a fucking campaign commercial. The sexual assault allegations gave him a bigger bump than Beyonce, such that Don now leads all presumptive rivals by no fewer than come in all makes and models, from hatchback Laura Bush to quarterback Michelle Obama. Or was that Silverback?
Alright, you gamer groipers and greasy gamer gunk generating goblins. If there's one thing that pisses us off more than shampoo, or getting a knock on the basement door that bagel bites are ready during a heated top lane gank, it's the bimbos, the bitches, the flailier sex. It's women. If gaming is the altar at which we brave men congregate, women are the messengers of Satan, spreading Beelzebub's dastardly tricks of inclusivity and hygiene that not only rid us of our precious pungent musk, but of our very own culture. Need I remind you of World War I, when Archduke Franz Dickenhand was shot dead mercilessly by serial wokist Ganita Sarkeen Sip. What followed was more harrowing than goddamn lag spikes penetrating deep into my colon during the climax of an epic duel sesh with my best bro.
If the sheer amount of misogynistic vitriol and lack of color didn't give it away already, this is a response to the Rageaholic, fellow metal YouTuber and valiant defender of the maligned and oppressed class of men known as gamers. While this video may be less metal focused, I find it somewhat important to provide a perspective in the metal YouTube sphere that differs from the enraged adversaries of women and wokeness that plagues various popular channels, as well as highlighting the superhighway intersection between metal and gaming. The Rageaholic has been around for a while, with some videos, especially his Metal Mythos History series, providing entertaining and thorough metal content. The guy has sharp wit, and an even sharper stick up his ass because he hates pretty much everything not directly marketed towards a tough guy like himself. In the past few years or so, his style has taken more of a political and current events turn. How dare you bring politics into metal, you son of a bitch! Huge surprise, the brazen Razor Fist is a dedicated anti-communist and January 6th denier, or supporter, or he's a conservative, okay? If I had as much time as Razor Fist does for picking out which gloves to slap on for a video, I'd take you on a trip through his greatest shits. But given the sheer quantity of neoconservatism being vomited directly onto his channel, and the fact that quite literally nothing he says is groundbreaking or differs from the classic freedom-loving talking points we know and love, I'm gonna stick with a lighthearted and relevant topic. Gamergate 2, Neglected Boyhood. He starts with a brief recap of the aforementioned Gamergate 1, which he describes as being started by a, quote, cabal of cringe commies, end quote. He does this a lot, calling anyone with a hammer in their toolbox or sickle in their crop field a raging Marxist.
Leninists waited entirely too long to try to infiltrate the gaming industry. They long since annexed academia, subjugated the cinema, completely captured the comic industry, but video games, those were kids' toys.
Throughout all of my exhilarating research into the OG Gamergate, the only mention of old Marxy boy was by enraged gamers, responding to accusations of sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, etc., with the classic catch-all retort of cultural Marxism, conveniently equated to the much-maligned concept of political correctness. I've explained cultural Marxism, postmodernism, and general anti-communist reaction to any shift from the status quo in my previous videos, but to reiterate briefly here, the capitalist hierarchy loves conformity to the status quo just as much as you love your precious shades. Any deviation from the status quo is met with fierce resistance, disparagement, harassment, and contempt. Why is that? No, it's not because they got triggered by your common sense, or due to your epic one-liners, but because of the profit motive. Yes, the capitalist system you so faithfully defend from wicked women, communism, is entirely dedicated to the profit motive. Given that fact, why would the games industry and the corporations therein want to jeopardize their comfortable positions atop the money-making machine that are video games by covertly ushering in a new communist age? Is it to win the favor of the damsels and madams in gaming journalism? Is it to subject white men to a life of eternal gulag? The answer is they are not jeopardizing anything. In fact, in pursuit of greater profit maximization, gaming industries, believe it or not, want women's money too. Crazy, right? Similarly to how entertainment, academia, and most pressingly comics has become feminized, video game companies, who most of the time are owned by the same people as the aforementioned fields, obviously dumbass, seek to exploit as large an audience as possible. How fucking stupid and shallow do you have to be to think that any utterance of gays or women in any entertainment media is the result of occult Marxist operations slyly infiltrating the safe space, video games, designated solely for us good white men?
Could they conceivably present a cultural threat to the people that program public discourse? And then, gaming quietly overtook Hollywood as the single most profitable entertainment concern in existence, all without a whiff of pinko politics in tow. And suddenly, the gaggle of gray ponytails panicked. Rather than boiling the bullfrog slowly, enacting a ponderous incrementalist strategy to slowly surround and infiltrate an entire industry, as they've done to television and film over the course of decades, they went full Fidel Castro in a shockingly compressed period of time with their fellow travelers in the gaming press bugling the call. But something happened then that Hollywood last witnessed during the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings. The frog flew clean out of the pot and introduced itself as Pepe. And for the man-booby boomers just joining us, we call that little episode Gamergate. If you've ever wondered why over the past decade, when anyone write a Pol Pot opposes agitprop in entertainment, the countdown is officially on for the first witless utterance of the word Gamergate, now you know. It's the single most traumatic event in leftist discourse, which is why they've spent 10 uninterrupted years positively seething about it. Look at it from their perspective. For over 70 years, the disciples of Antonio Gramsci had blanketed the earth with an unopposed ideopolitical messaging strategy they had down to such a well-honed, ineffable science that from the moment a cultural issue or aberrant sexual lifestyle was first featured on an episode of Oprah, from gay marriage to transsexualism, we were all but guaranteed to be ushering it into mainstream acceptance in the next 10 to 15 years. And then Gamergate happened. The first time in 7 damn decades that when cultural Marxists positioned us near the cliff and told us to jump, we turned and said, ladies first. And so we're celebrating 10 years of boofing the Bolsheviks by giving Gamergate a sequel. In case you missed my Dishonored 2 rant, I pointed out ages ago precisely what the strategy would be. Public discourse has failed you? No problem. Quietly slink away and enact a little private policy. The same thing as gaming leftists at large, consulting on and actively ruining your favorite franchise.
Turns out that reaction is quite literally by design. In this video, he mentions Gramsci, who popularized the concept of cultural hegemony. Watch my last video for a rundown on that. Razorfist, however, credits him for cultural Marxism and attempts to use the concepts of cultural hegemony as proof of the evil Marxist ploy to force everyone into rainbow onesies and coerced anal fixation. As I mentioned before, the hierarchy capitalism enforces is one that preserves power in the hands of the powerful and discourages any attempt at changing that power structure, all in the interest of profit accumulation. Getting more customers across demographics is in the interest of profits, but subverting the hierarchy in which that profit is maximized is to be avoided at all costs. Who stands on top of that hierarchy? Razor, you might want to take some deep breaths before hearing this. It's straight white men. And no, your rage-baiting Twitter feed echo chamber isn't indisputably indicative of this hierarchy. Well, now it may be, but definitely not during the height of the feminazi movement. Rage bait is a tried and true tactic by the owning class in media to seemingly reach for broader audiences while simultaneously providing ample opportunities for defenders of tradition and heteronormativity. Remember when I said that any deviation from the status quo, for example, women seeking acceptance in previously male-dominated fields, is met with fierce resistance, disparagement, harassment, and contempt? Who do you think does the heavy lifting for the status quo in this situation? That's right, it's you and your milking brethren, valiantly defending the gates of heteronormativity from the enemies of capital. The forces of democracy aren't powerless to this system. People united and outspoken can inflict change aimed at better representing or serving previously underserved groups of people. Despite the periodic allowance of change and representation, all for the sake of profits, of course, there will be a fervent reaction by those most aligned and served by the current status quo. This ends up being kind of a win-win for the entertainment corporations, exploiting a new market and furthering conformity to the status quo. Even if you bravely boycott said woke media, the ruling class merely provides you with the premium reactionary outrage season pass bundle. If you think whatever gets pushed has an immediate effect on brainwashing the populace, need I remind you of the people who still don't believe in climate change, or even evolution for that matter. And no amount of strong, independent women of color can convince you not to be a misogynist or racist. Because, conscious or not, those benefiting the most from the system are the most outraged at subversion. You stated that Gamergate was when cultural Marxists positioned us near a cliff and told us to jump, but we turned and said, "Ladies first." When in reality, it's you throwing a temper tantrum at those getting stomped on by the boot of capitalist hegemony even harder than you are. But instead of being enraged by the act of boot stomping, you are offended that they aren't licking the underside of said boot hard enough. The dominant powers know what communism is very well, and they know above all else that it's terrifying and extremely dangerous towards their position in society. Need I remind you of the first Red Scare? That's right, there were multiple Red Scares, dumbass. In the late 19th century, when striking miners and industrial workers were beaten, harassed, arrested, and killed by the thousands for daring to ask for a better life, or at least more fair than the one currently being suffered through. What was the reason for such harsh, systemic backlash? This was well before the 100 billion gorillion people died from communism, as well as before the Soviet Union, so nice try with those excuses. The fear of losing out on profits and the dangers of fostering communism were the cause. This paralyzing fear of communism, compounding over the course of decades and countless initiatives by the ruling class, brings us to our current warped state of ideology, where all it takes is a few hairs azul to garner the brand of SJW, or even worse, cultural Marxists. The point here is that the dominant class, in an effort to preserve power, utilizes its influence over media, education, and especially entertainment to denounce alternative systems and cultivate ideological hegemony among its populace, whether that populace is consciously aware of it or not. You've been sucking on the teat of liberalism for quite a while, Razor Fist. Also, you're all fucking liberals. Don't go ahead lumping us communists in with you class-denying, Marvel-consuming, culture war veterans who think unequivalent exchange is just another term for your deficiencies in the bedroom that made Becky leave you. That's right, you have more in common ideologically with all those Twitter-obsessed cat moms and Disney dummies than you think. The reason we get shoved into the same outgroup is due to the aforementioned systemic factors related to capitalist hegemony and dominance, silencing the outcries of the underprivileged under the catch-all of cultural Marxism. And because we respect women as people as opposed to digital flesh to ogle at, in reality, your steadfast anti-communist and individualist ideology is as neoliberal as it gets. All you did was drink a little too much Western Kool-Aid and take one wrong turn down MAGA Street. I mean, just look at your channel and listen to these quotes.
Nazis were socialists.
Bit of something into it at the end of the day, because Palestine, as anyone who knows anything about anything knows, for decades has been a project of global communism.
But my Music Mythos episode devoted to Michael Jackson, I made it emphatically known that I do not believe he was ever a pedophile.
As much as you may deny it, you try so hard to be a political commentary channel, but all you can muster is some Reaganite bullshit that sounds like your ideology was solidified when Terminator 3 came out. Get your bitch ass out of here if you think.
My name's John Schaefer. I'm from Indiana. A group of thugs and criminals hijacked this country a long time ago. Now they're making their big move, and it's not going to happen. And that's what it is. These are globalists. These are the scum of the earth. These are the criminals that are behind all the fraudulent fiat currency. They're behind all the wars. They're behind all the shit. They're behind divide and conquer tactics, behind the racial divide. It's all nonsense. It's all garbage. People need to wake up and snap out of the matrix because they're going down.
Sounds good to me. Yes, Razor Fist is a January 6th supporter, or denier, and lapped up every word of John Schaffer's little monologue as much as other neocons eat up the screenplay of Rocky IV. This was from his video on how heavy metal isn't dead, metal media is, a rant, and it perfectly encapsulates the essence of the gamer apocalypse as well. The downturn and dissatisfaction with media and entertainment is in the largest part due to the maximization of profits, not a who's who of outgroups and undesirables. Don't like that there's so many reboots? Capitalism. Reboots make a lot of money. Don't like the thinly veiled catering to minorities? You're racist. But also due to capitalism trying to exploit more markets. You think that people are getting more soft and whatnot? How you gonna exploit some kids with all that cursing? You get the point. After the amount of rageaholic I witnessed, in stark contrast to his assumptions of Marxists dominating public influence, I can't help but think his own shtick is brought to you by the freedom-loving boys down at Mar-a-Lago. Seriously, the amount of Trump dick riding is obscene. He never fails to hit a certain current event or hot topic, and he always comes equipped with the most recent reactionary gotchas and quips. His videos age precisely as well as sun-dried blue cheese, and, of course, he's a huge fan of musicians such as Alice Cooper, Wasp, and Iced Earth. I wonder why that is. He's a petulant man-child who disparages anything not immediately linked to his own desperately clung-to nostalgia, and he found comfort in the denial of reality cult that is the far right. It's a shame someone like that attaches himself to metal and has garnered a following, and he's not the only one. So yeah, you're dumb. So dumb, it might warrant a response to this video as well, but his linkage to metal is unfortunately quite similar to a number of other decently sized channels on YouTube, spouting anti-communist, bigoted, or otherwise dumb shit in proximity to metal. I aim to make more in-depth metal content, but sometimes shit's gotta be said.